I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there.
I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla.
In a jaw-dropping turn of events that's sending shockwaves through the monarchy, Princess Anne has reportedly taken a bold and unprecedented step, stripping Queen Camilla of a royal title long believed untouchable. Tensions within the palace have been simmering for years, but this sudden move signals a deep fracture at the very top of the royal family. So, what exactly pushed Anne to make such a drastic decision? And Camilla's stunned, emotional reaction? It says more than words ever could. This royal clash could change the future of the crown forever. Here's what really went down. Princess Anne's shocking decision. When the shocking headline surfaced that Princess Anne took away Camilla's queen title, the news exploded like a loud thunderclap, shaking not just the UK, but the whole world. What began as a normal royal event suddenly turned into a huge, unforgettable palace crisis, right in front of stunned cameras, flashing lights, and an audience that just couldn't believe what was happening. Camilla, calm and confident as always, stepped onto the red carpet at a grand state ceremony. She expected the usual polite introductions and respectful greetings. But instead, what happened was a total public humiliation. The announcer, clearly uneasy, hesitated and then introduced her as Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, a title nobody had heard her called in years. It was a clear sign. Camilla's title as queen had been taken away, maybe forever. Her confident smile faltered. Her eyes flicked nervously to the side. When the camera zoomed in closer, her carefully maintained calm cracked. Reporters noticed immediately. So did the whole country. Behind the scenes, palace staff scrambled in panic. Rumors about a secret power struggle inside the royal family had been swirling for months, but no one thought it would come out in such a dramatic and public way. Then came the official word. Princess Anne had quietly but firmly used her royal rights, granted by the late Queen Elizabeth, who trusted Anne to protect royal traditions, to strip Camilla of her most important honor. Camilla didn't lose her wealth or her place in King Charles's heart, but she lost the title of queen, the most powerful symbol of her status. Since Charles became king, nobody had been sure who really held the real power in Buckingham Palace, and now that question became even more confusing. The timing of Anne's move wasn't random. Camilla's public reputation had sunk after months of rumors, whispers that she tried to undermine Kate and had too much influence over Charles. Many warned her she was playing a dangerous game. No one expected Princess Anne, known as a serious, no-nonsense royal who stays out of the spotlight, to be the one to bring Camilla down. But now, the whole world was watching, not just out of curiosity, but because something important had changed. The monarchy, already struggling with scandals, questions about who would take the throne next, and divided loyalties, was now entering a completely new and uncertain chapter. In the middle of it all, Camilla was furious, Anne was stubborn as ever, and Catherine, the future queen, watched quietly, patiently waiting and planning her next moves. This wasn't just a royal soap opera, it was a real fight for control inside the royal family. To outsiders, Anne and Camilla had always seemed to keep a fragile peace, a truce born out of necessity, not friendship. But behind their polite smiles, careful handshakes, and staged conversations at official events, a quiet war had been raging for nearly 30 years. This battle wasn't fought with swords or loud arguments. It was a war of silent judgments, deep grudges, and a clash between old royal traditions and new changes. What really caused the bitterness between Camilla and Anne? Let's explore further to uncover the truth. Camilla and Anne's tension. Their complicated story started under the shadow of one woman, Diana, Princess of Wales. Princess Anne had always been fiercely loyal to her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and deeply committed to preserving the royal family's old customs. She was brought up to serve quietly, with discipline and respect for privacy, not to chase attention or celebrity. When Diana arrived with her bright media spotlight and emotional openness, Anne thought she was too soft, too dramatic, and too focused on public fame. But as time passed, Anne began to see Diana differently, not just as Charles's wife, but as someone who brought something the royal family desperately needed: a real human touch. When the truth about Charles and Camilla's long affair came out, Anne was furious, not just at her brother, but at Camilla, who she believed had damaged the sacredness of a royal marriage. While others whispered or stayed silent, Anne never hid her anger. To Princess Anne, Camilla represented everything that could go wrong when someone put personal desires ahead of royal duty. Anne believed the monarchy was built on sacrifice, loyalty, and a spotless public image, qualities she lived by and expected in others. Camilla, in Anne's eyes, didn't measure up. Although Queen Elizabeth eventually came to accept Camilla, even granting her the title of Queen Consort before passing away, Anne never fully warmed up to her. She followed the rules. She showed up to events, smiled for photos, and played her part. But she always kept Camilla at arm's length. Body language experts often noticed how stiff things were between them. They rarely shared glances or spoke warmly to each other. There was no genuine connection, only a cold politeness, like two people stuck in the same room who had silently agreed not to like each other. Their tension wasn't just personal, it was symbolic of something much bigger. To Anne, Camilla wasn't just a woman married to the king. She was a rule breaker, someone who had entered the royal circle through scandal and slowly reshaped traditions to suit herself. Anne, a lifelong protector of royal values, saw this as dangerous. She believed being queen wasn't a role you earned by being in a long relationship. It was a duty you had to work for, prove yourself worthy of, and uphold with dignity. Camilla, in Anne's mind, hadn't done any of that. Camilla, on the other hand, was deeply frustrated by Anne's constant chill. After spending years being mocked and vilified by the press and the public, Camilla had finally clawed her way to acceptance. She thought she'd earned her place. She believed that with Charles on the throne and herself officially titled Queen Consort, her difficult journey had reached a happy ending. What she didn't see coming was that Anne still didn't believe she belonged, and was quietly waiting for the right moment to push back. According to palace insiders, that moment came not long after the coronation. The tension between the two women, always simmering beneath the surface, began to boil over. Camilla, now feeling confident and empowered by her new status, began making changes. She tweaked seating charts at official events, suggested new directions for royal charities, some of which clashed with Anne's lifelong causes, and even hinted that her own grandchildren should have more visibility in the royal family. Anne watched all this carefully, and she didn't like what she saw. At a private gathering at Windsor, the strain between them reportedly broke through the surface. Camilla, raising a glass, jokingly called herself the real matriarch now, smiling as though she had won. Anne didn't laugh. Instead, she replied with icy precision, "You may wear the crown, but it doesn't mean you carry its weight." It wasn't just a sharp comeback, it was a clear warning. And that warning soon became action. With Queen Elizabeth gone, Anne saw herself as the last true guardian of royal tradition. She had no patience left for what she saw as Camilla's ambition or overreach. When Camilla stepped too far, Anne didn't hesitate. The quiet Cold War between them turned into open resistance. But in the royal world, power isn't usually exercised through shouting matches or grand battles. It moves quietly, through whispered conversations, exchanged glances, and carefully signed documents. Camilla's style was subtle. She hosted private dinners, made quiet suggestions, and masked her ambitions behind talk of modernization and tradition. Still, for those paying attention, her intentions were clear. She wanted more influence behind palace walls. And then came the final straw. Camilla began pushing for her son, Tom Parker Bowles, to be given an official role inside the royal household, something like an advisor. This position would put him in close contact with top decision-makers and give him a voice in royal planning and perhaps even succession discussions. To Anne, this was outrageous. Not just because Tom had no royal title or bloodline, but because such roles had always been reserved for those born into the monarchy, not married in. Anne saw it as a major breach of protocol and a blatant power play. She had seen enough. Camilla's quiet rise had gone too far, and Anne was no longer willing to stand by. So did Camilla try to change the royal structure? Let's find out. Camilla's attempt to reshape the monarchy. Camilla was said to be pushing for a change in the royal order. A small detail on the surface, like who walks into a room first, who gets the best seat at a royal dinner, or who stands closest to the king at official events. To people outside the palace, these things might seem like silly traditions. But inside those ancient walls, they carry deep meaning. These rules reflect power, honor, and where each person stands in the grand structure of the monarchy. Camilla wasn't just interested in changing where people stood. She also wanted her own family, her children from before she married Charles, to have more importance, even more than some royals who had served the crown their whole lives. That was too much for Princess Anne. Anne had already tolerated a lot, Camilla's pet projects that seemed more about image than duty, her quiet jabs at Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and the way she always seemed to influence Charles behind the scenes. But now, Camilla wasn't just challenging tradition, she was trying to reshape the very identity of the royal family. In a private and serious meeting, Anne confronted Charles. She reminded him that royal titles, roles, and formal order weren't just fancy customs. They were sacred and should never be changed to suit someone's personal ambitions. But Charles, always the peacemaker, tried to brush it off. He said Camilla only wanted to modernize things and that Anne was being too stuck in the past. That was a big mistake. Anne knew the monarchy couldn't survive if it became a stage for people's personal dreams, especially not for those who had once shaken the public's faith in the royal family. In her eyes, no matter how kind or talented Camilla's children were, they weren't part of the royal bloodline. Giving them a place above Prince William, Kate, and their children, the true future of the monarchy, felt like a betrayal. People close to Anne said she left that meeting with a firm decision in her heart. Camilla had crossed the line. Anne could no longer accept her as queen, not when she seemed to be using that title to remake the monarchy in her own image. And Anne wasn't going to wait for Charles to act. She would take the lead herself. What was supposed to be a peaceful weekend at Balmoral Castle, the royal family's quiet hideaway in the Scottish Highlands, turned into the setting for a confrontation that had been brewing for years. The cold stone halls of Balmoral, filled with memories of generations past, now held tension instead of peace. Princess Anne had called for the meeting. That alone was unusual. Anne wasn't someone who made demands or stirred up drama. She showed up, did her duty, and kept quiet. So when she sent a formal message saying everyone needed to be there, the palace listened. Charles arrived tired and unaware of just how serious things had become. Camilla came too, still confident that she could talk her way out of any trouble. She had done it before, when scandals broke out, when critics whispered, and even when Diana's memory cast a long shadow over her life. But this time, something was different. Anne was calm, firm, and fully prepared. The meeting took place in one of the smaller rooms at Balmoral, far from curious staff or eavesdropping ears. Only a few people were present: Charles, Camilla, Anne, and a handful of trusted senior advisors. No one else spoke unless Anne invited them to. So, why did Anne choose to take away Camilla's titles? Let's look into it more closely. Stripping Camilla of her royal title. Camilla had been using the title of Queen at formal royal events, but that privilege was suddenly taken away. From that moment on, she was to be known once again as the Duchess of Cornwall, at least at all events where the king wasn't present. This change didn't come quietly. Camilla issued a carefully written statement, trying to assert her authority by reminding everyone that she was Colonel of the Blues and Royals, a respected royal title, and Queen Elizabeth II's only daughter. But Princess Anne wasn't swayed. When Charles heard about the decision, he was visibly shaken. His protest wasn't forceful, it was heartfelt. "She's my wife," he said with emotion. "She is queen." Anne's reply cut like ice. "She may be your wife, Charles," she said firmly, "but she's nothing like the queen our mother imagined." Camilla, stunned and offended, snapped back, her voice sharp. "You are not the monarch?" Anne rose to her full height, her voice cool but steady. "No," she said, "but I am my mother's daughter, and she trusted me to protect what she built." Even the royal aides looked away, not daring to meet anyone's eyes. The atmosphere was tense, like a storm had passed through the palace halls. Moments later, Camilla stormed out, the door slamming shut behind her. Charles sat frozen in silence. Anne, always composed and rarely dramatic, quietly placed the signed document back on the table, gave a small nod, and walked away without another word. Within hours, official messages were being sent across palace networks. The Princess Royal had ordered that all references to Queen Camilla be removed. Event coordinators, press officers, and palace staff received clear instructions. She was to be introduced only as the Duchess of Cornwall from now on. No press statement, no interviews, no fanfare. But the change didn't stay hidden for long. Within days, the consequences became obvious. Hosts at public events hesitated as they introduced her. Programs were reprinted. Camilla's royal title began disappearing. The moment everything truly changed happened at a grand event: the Royal Academy's charity banquet. The room glittered with elegance. Under golden chandeliers and camera flashes, dignitaries mingled on plush crimson carpets. It was meant to be just another appearance for Queen Camilla, who arrived proudly in a sparkling tiara and a deep sapphire gown, Charles by her side. Everything was rehearsed, familiar, safe, but nothing could prepare her for what came next. As she stepped toward the stage, expecting to hear her full royal title announced, the host's voice rang out, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall." The room froze. There was a moment of shocked silence, then a wave of awkward applause. Camilla stopped in her tracks. For a second, she thought she had misheard. Her face twitched slightly, but the cameras caught it all. She looked at the host, then at Charles, whose stunned expression matched her own. And in that instant, she understood. This wasn't an accident. No one had warned her. No one had sent a quiet message ahead of time. This was no headline leak or rumor. It was a public takedown. Backstage, royal aides were panicking. One whispered to an event planner. Another frantically reached for a phone. But it was too late. The world had seen it. Seasoned reporters picked up on the tension immediately. "Did you hear that?" one whispered. "They just demoted her live." The news spread like wildfire. Whispers turned into tweets. Tweets exploded into headlines. To her credit, Camilla didn't run. She gave the speech she came to deliver. Her voice trembled at first but steadied as she went on. Years of royal training held her together on the outside. But inside, She was shattered. Every photo, every news clip, every social media post now referred to her as the Duchess of Cornwall, not Queen. The title she had fought for, through years of public criticism and quiet persistence, was slipping through her fingers. When Camilla returned to the palace that night, she was reportedly devastated. She demanded to know what had happened. Staff tried to blame a clerical error, a slip, a mix-up. But Camilla wasn't fooled. The wording had been too deliberate, too perfect. Someone had issued a direct order, and that someone was Princess Anne. This wasn't just an insult, it was a strategic strike carried out in public view. One word changed, and years of work unraveled. Editorials praised Anne's subtle but firm action. They called it a return to tradition. Social media turned it into a storm. Hashtags like Duchess Again trended online. Camilla's stunned face was plastered next to pictures of Anne, calm and unflinching, like a victorious general. But the real damage wasn't online. It happened behind palace walls. The royal order had shifted, not with shouting or scandal, but with silent authority, and Camilla got the message loud and clear. The crown you wore was never truly yours, and now it's been taken back. When she finally stepped back into Clarence's house that night, her composure shattered. According to palace insiders, Camilla exploded in anger. She shouted, threw a crystal glass at the wall, and shattered a vase near the fireplace. Her normally calm voice thundered through the halls. She demanded to know who was behind it, who had betrayed her. "How dare she?" Camilla reportedly yelled. "How dare Anne humiliate me like that in front of the whole world?" She accused aides of siding with Anne, of being part of some royal conspiracy. She ordered an internal investigation to find out who had organized the embarrassing announcement. Camilla's rage slowly melted into despair. She locked herself in her private rooms and refused to come out for hours. The woman who had climbed from royal outsider to consort, who had endured public hate and court whispers to finally wear the crown, had been brought low by a single sentence. All the battles she had fought for recognition and legitimacy were undone in just a few seconds on stage. And this time, no tiara, no title, and no husband could shield her. Was Camilla the only member of the royal family struggling to cope? Let's find out. Royal family struggle. Camilla wasn't the only one falling apart. According to insiders, King Charles was already struggling with the weight of being a modern monarch and dealing with a divided family. After the gala, he called his sister Anne. What started as a calm talk quickly turned into a heated fight, one that had been building up for years. "You've crossed a line," Charles reportedly told her. Anne shot back, "No, Charles, you did, the day you crowned her queen." The call ended in complete silence. That night, Charles paced alone in his private library. He didn't know what to do: make a public statement, go against Anne's decision, or say nothing at all. But he understood one thing clearly. If he publicly gave Camilla back her title, he'd start a war. Not just with Anne, but with others in the family who believed Camilla was a threat to the monarchy's future. This quiet group included William and Catherine. Though they said nothing during the storm, their silence spoke volumes. They didn't defend Camilla, they didn't stop Anne. And the next morning, Charles got a message from William. "We need to protect the crown, not personalities." It cut deep, and Charles felt it. He loved Camilla, but he also had to protect the institution he was born into. Camilla, now stripped of her title and pushed aside, realized her enemies hadn't just embarrassed her. They had outplayed her. There were no press statements, no public drama, but everyone understood something major had changed. The monarchy had quietly shifted, and it wasn't the king who made that happen. It was Princess Anne. Long underestimated, Anne did what no one else dared. She didn't make a scene or seek attention. She simply used her position, her family name, and the trust her late mother had in her. She defended the crown, not with noise, but with firm, silent action. Because of her, the royal family, shaken and stretched for years, stood a little taller. As for Camilla, once seen as the woman who would shape the future of the monarchy, she slowly faded from the spotlight. Fewer public events, less media buzz. Whispers of her influence began to fade inside the palace. She was still Charles's wife, but no longer the centerpiece of his reign. Her title was gone, and so was the idea that her power was untouchable. Charles changed too. Those close to him saw a quieter, more thoughtful king, one who now understood that the heart of the royal family no longer revolved around him, but around the next generation, William, Catherine, and their children. But it was Anne who lit the spark. What do you think about Princess Anne's sudden decision to revoke Camilla's royal titles? Let us know your opinion in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.